My name's Gregg. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank Tony for asking me to lead. Tony's a trudging buddy and an occasional riding buddy. We go to the other men's stag, the Thursday night San Marino men's stag, which is being represented this evening. Welcome Bill, first time. Welcome the newcomers, Ariel, Steve, Seth, Brad, Howard. Congratulations, 6 months for David. Happy birthday, Michael, for 19 years. My sobriety date is February 24th, 1987. I'm 63 years old. I got sober, I was 27 years old. Over half my life has been spent in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hail from the west side of Los Angeles, Jewish family in Westwood. Mother was addicted to pills. Father was rageaholic, workaholic. We looked great on the outside. We were the Brady Bunch on the outside. We were the Manson family on the inside. And I'm the oldest of four. I and two brothers, we are all sober. I have two younger brothers. I have a brother who is 54, who is 40 years in this program. And I have a brother who is 59, who has 39 years in this program. I was thinking about it. There's one thing that I heard when I came into AA, is that I was an alcoholic before I ever picked up a drink, which was true for me. I was a people pleaser. I was incredibly insecure. I would do or be anything as long to get you to like me, or what I thought you wanted me to be. I would say anything. And yet at the same time, I was always thinking about myself. And and it's funny because growing up, having a mother who was not a drinker but a pill popper, there was overdoses, there was, calls to the hospital, there were trips in the hospital. They didn't call it rehab back then. So you'd think the last thing I would want is to do drugs, but I couldn't wait. I got high and I got drunk in the same year, which was 1976. And I threw up from alcohol, but I loved smoking grass because I literally felt myself disengage from myself. I literally, I felt whoever I thought I was just float out, and I didn't feel anything. And that was I felt that I found something that could cure just how unhappy I was, unhappy with myself. And I wasn't anything enough. I wasn't good looking enough. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't athletic enough. I wasn't smart enough. The cute girls didn't like me, I was always finding guys, because being the oldest, I didn't have an older brother. So I was always searching for role models, turning guys into my higher power. So I was always finding someone or something to be a higher power. And then that became drugs. And, I drank and used for 11 years. My drunk-a-log was not particularly exciting or dramatic. I was always stoned and did a lot of LSD in high school, which people weren't doing in the late 70s. And I moved to New York because I was an actor at the time, and I discovered alcohol, and alcohol became my thing. And New York City is a great place to become an alcoholic. It's like it was made to nurture alcoholism, because there's 2 bars on every street. You don't have to drive anywhere. And alcohol for me represented, it represented what I thought being a man was, and being cool. And my role model, my fantasy role model when I was a kid was James Bond, and I would get back to that towards the end of the show, why I mentioned that. Not because of the women, but because of the alcohol and the tuxedos and the fast cars and the guns. And I just identified with that character, it didn't matter who played it. And, I felt like I was always constructing a personality for the world to see. I was never authentic. I was never real with anyone, with the women I dated, with the friends I had. And I went to work at a theater in Minneapolis in 1986, and I would come off stage every night, we all did, and there was a theater bar, and we'd just go down there and just get smashed. And that was my last year of drinking. And something interesting happened during that year. I had 2 blind dates that were set up for me. One was through the personal ads, which, you know, some of you are probably old enough to remember, pre-internet, pre-dating sites. And I met someone in the personals, and she was sober, and somebody fixed me up on a date with a woman, and she was sober. And I was drinking. I was out of my mind. But there was something about that kind of touched me. Like, I thought, that's interesting. My mother had gotten sober when I was 21 and threw my 2 brothers into rehab. And I thought, well, that's fine for you. I don't need that. And I moved back to LA in '87. And I think I just felt like my life was over. My life hadn't even begun. But I felt like it was over because basically for the first 10 years of my life, 11 years since I was little, I felt less than, and then I discovered drugs and alcohol at 16. So I had a good, 22, 23 years of feeling like shit and trying to medicate myself, whether it was through fantasy or whether it was through substances. And so I was ready, clearly, and my mother took me to a place called Ohio Street in Westwood. It was a 2-speaker meeting. And I walked in and I had the experience that I've had ever since, which is I walk into a room full of strangers and I hear my story told over and over and over again. And I'm the kind of alcoholic who was always looking for a place to belong. That's all I wanted, was to belong, and I never felt like I did. And in Alcoholics Anonymous, I felt like I belonged. I found a community of people, and it didn't matter what your age was, what your race was, what your lifestyle was, what your gender was. When you shared about why you drank, I related. And, there's not a lot of, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of newcomers tonight. The last time I was here was a year and a half ago. I spoke, and it was my 36th birthday, and there were a lot of guys who were new. And if you're new and you're here, you're in the right place. This is a great meeting. There's great fellowship here. There's great brotherhood here. There's no bullshit, and that's what I love about AA. I'm in 2 other programs, which, because of sort of the, not to get into outside issues or anything, but just because of the way the world is, there's a lot of politeness, and there's a lot of, triggers and all this stuff, and I have to be very careful what I share about. But one of the things I love about Stag is that I can still be honest, and AA for me is still no nonsense. I came in and it was sit down, shut up, be of service. And that's what it continues to be for me. Having some time in this program, what that means is my disease is just sitting there. My disease has not gone away. And I've known so many people who've gone out with a lot of time. And when they go out, man, they go out. And that happened to my mother. My mother was clean for 11 years. She had surgery. She had dialysis because her kidneys had failed. And she got prescribed Vicodin after surgery, and it took her 5 years to die. And my mother died at Hollywood Presbyterian Hospital. We put her in a facility, and she'd been calling to complain that she had chest pains, so they would take her to the hospital, and they'd give her morphine. So we are nothing if not industrious to get what we want. And she did that for the better part of a year, and then the last time her body failed and she died. And they'd been calling us so many times that we'd stopped answering, and so they took the next of kin numbers off the report. So my mother was dead in the hospital ward for 3 weeks before I learned that she was gone. And as sad as that was, and we had a celebration of life for her on the beach, and it was a gift because she showed me with her passing how we die if we are in this disease, And so that was a great lesson for me. I've been, I've gone through, I've been in and out, I haven't had a drink, but I've gone through periods of not going to meetings. I became a writer. I married someone who lived out in Pasadena. She had a lot of money. We had this big life. We built this house in San Marino. We had kids. And for the last 7 or 8 years of my marriage, my higher power was my job, my paycheck, my career, our parties, our kids, the house. And I got really far away. And for me, up until that point, my higher power was the fellowship. It was the group of drugs, G-O-D. And I prayed, but I don't know that I ever really identified with a higher power per se. And I got divorced in 2010, and my world came apart because I wasn't the one that wanted the divorce, even though it was necessary. And I felt such crippling fear. So I moved out of my house. I was living by myself. My kids were little. I mean, it was like the two things I feared most at that point in my life was losing my job and losing my marriage, and both of those things happened within a year. And the thing is, I didn't drink over it, and actually what happened is it pushed me back into the program. And I started going to the 202 Club in Colorado. I got a new sponsor, and the first person to say hello to me as I was coming into the 202, it was a new meeting, was a guy, Blair W., who worked as a waiter at the restaurant I used to go to all the time when I was married. And he was sober, and he said, I always felt so bad because everybody was drinking, and he would bring me Diet Coke in a highball glass, like make me feel like I was part of it. But that was like, of all the people that come up to me was somebody who had observed me, during my marriage. And that's really when I began to connect with a power greater than myself that I call God, where when I got sober, I didn't have anything. I didn't have a house, I didn't have a career, I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids, I didn't have anything, I just had me. And that was fine, because then I could just focus on me. But by the time I got divorced, I had a job, I had expenses, I had 3 kids, I had a lot of responsibility. And that's when I turned to a higher power, and I really embraced those first 3 steps in a new way. And I've dealt with divorce, I've dealt with health stuff, and since the pandemic, my program has never been stronger because I go to a meeting every day, thanks to Zoom. And my Zoom home group was Shakers, and now it's Attitude Adjustment South Pasadena, and my in-person home group is the Thursday night meeting. And I gotta tell you, I need meetings every day. That's what, for me, 37 and a half years in this program is, I need meetings every day. Because I fucking look around at people and I want to tell them how to live their lives. I want to tell them what to share in meetings. And I have to let go of resentments constantly. And I keep getting the message every day about acceptance and forgiveness. And my life is fantastic today, and it's not because of what I make or where I live or who I date or any of that stuff. It's because I just want to be happy, joyous, and free. You know what I mean? I just want to live those promises that the book talks about, that have all come true for me today. And it happens because I'm of service today, and I have sponsees, and I have a sponsor that I talk to every week. I'm in a relationship. I'm about 4 months in a relationship, and my shelf life with someone is about 3 months, and I get to 3 months and I want out because the new car smell is gone, right? And I want out, and I take the contrary action. But indulged in some behavior the last week that I wasn't really happy about. And my first impulse was, well, I'm not going to tell anybody. I'm just going to keep going on. And instead, I picked up the phone and I called my sponsor, Gary P., who's in this room. And I called other fellows, and I worked the program, you know. And I didn't beat myself up, and I didn't shame myself. I looked at the situation, and I was able to kind of take direction, good orderly direction, GOD. And you know, I haven't trashed that relationship, which is normally what I would do. And I keep thinking about Tony because about a year ago, maybe it was longer, I don't remember, but I had to get a new car. And I really wanted a Dodge Challenger. But I kept thinking, no, I have to get a Honda Accord because I got kids and responsibility. And I was like, the Challenger, the Accord, the Challenger, the Accord. And I talked to Tony, who was one of the people who was like, well, this is what the Challenger is, this is what the Accord is. And it's kind of the same way with relationships with women. It's like, I should have the Honda, but I want the Challenger, you know? And I kind of, that's what I was facing. It's like, I'd rather have the fantasy than the reality. You know what I mean? And the thing is that, you know, as an alcoholic, I'm hardwired to look outside myself to fix myself, you know, and you take away my drugs and my alcohol, and I'm going to look at food, and I'm going to look at sex, and I'm going to look at money, and I'm going to look at shit, you know, things or career, whatever. And none of those things are going to fix me. And the thing is that I forget that every morning I wake up. I go to bed, you know, 1, 2, and 3 in the morning, 10, 11, 12 at night. Feel spiritual, feel centered. I wake, and it's Groundhog Day, you know, and I'm back, restless, irritable, discontent, resentful, where's mine, whatever it is. And I hit my knees and I pray, and I get on a meeting at 6:30 in the morning. And that's how I need to start my day. I'm a morning meeting person. I've got 1 minute left. What? Yes, James Bond. So, I'm a writer, okay? And so I used to write movie scripts and TV scripts, and I work in advertising. But I started in the theater, and I wrote a play. And it started with an idea, what if James Bond went to rehab? Because he's an alcoholic, he's a sex addict, he's a nicotine addict, he's a gambling addict, he has PTSD, and he kills people for a living. And that evolved into a play that I wrote called The Spy Who Went Into Rehab that has been playing in Venice and a successful run, and it's coming back. And the thing I just want to say is that I had the opportunity to put everything I knew and experienced about being sober into a play. And people who aren't in the program get it. People who are kids who don't even know who that character is get it. And people who are in sobriety get it. And that to me is such a gift that it's my way of giving back in a way that I can take all of the things I've learned and continue to learn. And I learn it from all of you. I don't know any of this stuff. I learn it from all of you, and I turn it into something creative. So that's my time. Thank you for letting me share.
Nicely done.